Hello everybody, I wanted to take a moment and show this scope that I purchased for that RWS Model 34 Diana. I kind of bought this because I wanted to kind of play around with some longer range stuff that's just simply beyond my eyesight, and I of course know very little about this type of stuff. I've never been a long range shooter, I don't hunt. But I wanted to show this scope I bought because this thing got absolute great reviews, and it happens to also be an RWS brand. And what I can say about it through my reading is, if you're going to put any type of a scope on especially a Springer type air gun like I just showed in another clip, you need a scope that can handle the recoil on those guns, because unlike a regular firearm they don't just recoil towards you in one direction, they actually recoil in both directions by the way they work. So if your scope isn't made to handle that recoil in both directions, and I believe a lot of just the normal rifle scopes are not, you'll literally shake the thing to pieces. So this one, obviously, since it's made by the same company, is rated, and it specifically stated that. And oddly enough, I had to pay more than what I paid for the actual gun off Craigslist, the rifle. I actually paid $106 to my door is what it cost me, $106 for this from Air Gun Depot. So, like I said, if you guys are looking for something, this might be a decent option, and it got real good reviews, so I went with it. I've only spent maybe 15 minutes playing around with it and dialing it in. Obviously it's not on the gun right now because I took it off to show the video and the gun separately. So the way it came is in a really nice black box with gold embossed letters on it. There you go. Air Gun Depot was great. That thing showed up really quick. So here's the scope itself. Now this particular one is a variable power scope. It goes from 4x all the way up to 12x. And they have a 3x9, I believe. And they also have a static one. I can't really remember what it is. But the reason that I went with the 4x12 is when I did some math and looking at the exit pupil, and I'm going to use some terms here that a lot of you may not know, and I didn't either, but the exit pupil, even at the highest magnification, is basically how much diameter exiting the end of the optic here by the eyepiece is. And it did better at the highest magnification, and when I checked it all the way down against the other scope that they had, it just seemed to have a better exit pupil all the way across, because this is a 50mm scope. It's 50 millimeters on the front bill here, and I believe the other one was 40. I think so. So anyway, it came with a couple covers. They are see-through. This one's kind of got a tint to it. They come right off. Hopefully I'm still in frame. This dial right here is for your magnification, like I said, from 4 to 12. I've dialed it all the way up, and for what what's considered to be a budget scope, this thing was almost sub $100. You can't expect all that much for good optics, but I can see a clear picture all the way out to 12 once I kind of dial it in. It does have a parallax adjustment here. If you guys don't know what that is, look it up. I'm not going to try to explain it because I'm, like I said, a complete novice on these things. But it worked great. You can adjust, or you should, before you even mount it, or get your eye relief right, which it'll tell you how far your eye should be. And then turn this focus ring until your rectile or your crosshairs get clean and sharp, and then leave it alone. But this also has this is a mil dot scope. It's got mil dots on the rectile, but it also has a lighted rectile. It lights up in red, and that's what this dial here on the top is for. It dials from 0 to 7 for different intensities, and it's got, I don't know, CR3023 or something like that battery underneath this cover, which you know, is basically the same thing that would be in the keychain remote on your car. Now for your windage and elevation, it does have the caps that you take off. This is not a target type scope, so you do have to take these off. But you don't have to have a tool with this. There's a stand up here that you can turn and click. And I believe this is a 1/4 inch per click at 100 yards. So that seemed to work all right. This particular scope, and it was kind of a benefit, this has like an 11mm dovetail ring set on it, and it just happens to be the right size for my rifle because, you know, of course it's the same brand, but there are some complaints about these things shifting around and moving on the springers. Now I played with it maybe 20 or 30 shots and I didn't notice anything, you know, going crazy there, so it seems to work fine for at least me. But they do have some other systems you can look into to mount it onto your rifle, where it basically would turn this dovetail into like a Weaver style mount or a Picatinny, and then you can buy those rings to mount there accordingly. They also have ones that are compensated for barrel droop, which was kind of a new one on me, but that seems to be an air gun thing especially. But that basically means that the barrel points down a little bit. So when you put on a scope, since the scope is not attached to the brake barrel, and there's iron sights on the brake barrel, so it doesn't matter which direction or how far off the barrel is from being straight with the cylinder, those iron sights are mounted directly to it, so there's no problem. You just dial it in and there you go. But when you mount this scope back behind the brake, and if you do have a droop, you may have a problem with your elevation. You know, your shots may be shooting low because the scope is obviously higher up, and you may run out of adjustment, vertical adjustment. So they sell mounts that compensate for that, and it basically kicks your scope down on the front. But I didn't buy one of those yet. I just wanted to play with what I had, and so far, moving out maybe, I don't know, 35 or 40 yards, I've still got plenty of elevation to compensate for that. So maybe mine doesn't have that bad of a droop. But all in all, this thing is absolutely almost 100% anodized aluminum. This is a 30mm tube as opposed to a 1-inch, so there's more light that goes through there, as well as you get a little bit more range, I believe, on your vertical and your windage adjustments. All in all, the optics seem to be fairly good, and I like it. You know, I did have to pay more for it than the gun itself, but you know, so far I think it's a good score. And the site I got it from, like I said, was airgundepot.com, I believe, and you know, just added it to the cart. Their service was great, communication was great, tracking, all that stuff came right to the door. So just another thing to show. You know, I can't really answer any questions about this stuff because it's all new to me, but thanks for watching and good luck.